Does anyone else remember Roy Wood Jr. roasting Clarence Thomas alive?
I think Republicans, y'all would be surprised, man, if y'all would just be real about what CRT is. You can be surprised. Some black folks might meet you halfway. But you got to tell the truth. You can't lie to black people. Call it what it is. Anti-CRT policies are an attack on black history and an attempt to erase the contributions of black people from the history books. You are trying to erase black people, and a lot of black people wouldn't mind some of that erasure as long as that black person is Clarence Thomas. Billionaire named Harlan Crow, flying Clarence Thomas all over the world on unreported trips, like an Instagram model, taking Clarence to the Maldives and the beaches and all. Paid for his mama's house, this billionaire. Paid for Clarence Thomas' mama's house. I gotta give it up to billionaires. Billionaires, boy, y'all always come up with something new to buy. Like, just when you think of everything you could buy on Earth, a billionaire will come up with a new thing. Y'all buy space rockets, you bought Twitter. This man bought a Supreme Court justice. Do you understand how rich you have to be to buy a black one on top of that? There's only 2 in stock. And Harlan Crow owns half the inventory. We can all see Clarence Thomas, but he belongs to billionaire Harlan Crow, and that's what an NFT is.
Can we talk about tipping culture and the weirdest place that you've ever been asked to tip? Really quick. I went shopping for my wedding dress like a week and a half ago, and I ended up finding my dress at the first store that I went to. And I'm not joking, when I went to go pay, they flipped their little iPad around and it asked for a tip. When I tell you, like, I full on froze, I stood there and I think they saw like the blood leave my body. I did not expect to have to like tip buying a wedding dress. And mind you, the store was empty. Like, it was me, my best friend, and then the 3 people that worked there. I think one was the owner and then just 2 stylists or something. So it was just empty. It was just them 3 at the front and then me just paying, and I think my best friend was to the side like looking at more dresses. So like I just kind of stood there, and luckily I speak a different language, and my best friend bought a wedding dress at a different store like sometime last year. So in a different language, I looked at her and I said, "Hey, did you tip when you bought your wedding dress?" And she was like, "No." And then I was like, "Did they ask you to tip?" And she said, "No." So then I was like, oh my god, like I really don't think you're supposed to be tipping when you buy like a wedding dress. So I'm just kind of like standing there trying to do math in my head, because the dress is already expensive, right? And then like a 10% on like a $1,500, $2,000 dress is like another $200. And if the dress is even more, you're paying a couple $100, which I guess if you can afford like a $10,000 dress, maybe a tip isn't that big of a problem. But most people really can't, right? Like my mom's the one who paid for my dress. I was just the one that was paying for it on my Amex trying to get those points. Anyway, I just stood there, and so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna tip a couple $100 because that's a lot. And again, why am I tipping at a bridal store? So then I'm doing math, and I'm like, maybe I'll just like press custom and just do like a $50 tip, which I think ends up being like 1.5%, which is like almost embarrassing. But I'm like, also, if you guys think your stylist deserves a tip, why don't you just give her commission instead of asking me to tip? Or maybe I'm wrong. Like, have any other brides ever tipped when they bought their wedding dress? I don't know, maybe I'm being kind of weird, but I just don't feel like that was like a service that, I guess she brought dresses out to me, but I did that when I worked at stores. Like, I just got commission off selling clothes to people. Like, nobody was tipping me at a retail store. I don't know. Tipping is kind of weird lately.
I always hear people complain that games nowadays, they're too difficult, they're too hard, they're too challenging. Well, let me tell you exactly what I think. I think games nowadays, they're too easy. You ever played Elden Ring? You played the Souls game? You played Bloodborne? They're not hard. These games, they're designed to develop the virtue of patience. You lose to a boss fight, you start at the save point, you try it again, you develop patience. You want to know what we developed playing video games when we were younger? You want to know what we developed playing Lion King, playing Earthworm Jim, playing Battletoads? Childhood trauma. We developed childhood trauma. Oh, you made it all the way to the Stampede level and then game over? Well, guess what? That's 2 hours of your life you're never getting back. You start over. Hopefully you still have some sanity left in you. Childhood trauma. Games today, they're not hard. Y'all are too soft.
You don't just wake up someday and decide I'm going to drop out of the U.S. consumeristic society and move to Honduras. and live on a small Caribbean island in search of a more meaningful and simplistic life. It's a process. For me, the first step was pursuing the American dream, going to college, getting a job, starting a business, being successful, and successful not only in your career, but also financially and socially, and acquiring the things that are supposed to bring you happiness. A nice home, a fancy car, lots of things. That's where happiness is promised to us in the United States under our consumeristic society. And then discovering that that doesn't bring you happiness, that you aren't as satisfied as you thought you would be, and thinking the answer is getting more things and earning more money and being more successful. After all, there are people with bigger houses and nicer cars, and maybe if I had those things, I could do it. And realizing that that takes you into a spiral of stress and jealousy and unfulfillment. And the harder you work, the more behind you seem, and the more dissatisfied with the things that you have. And then finally, one day realizing that maybe the key to success isn't upward into more financial and career success and more things. Maybe it's downward. Maybe it's in a more simplistic life with less things and less responsibilities to just be more satisfied. And so you start watching YouTube videos about people making homesteads in Alaska, or building farms in Panama, or living on a sailboat. I was totally obsessed with van life, and you use those as escapism to think maybe I could have a life like that. But it's just a dream, right? It's just escapism. It's something when you can't sleep at night, you lay in bed and you think about. You don't really think you're going to do it. And then one night at 3 a.m., because you're always awake at 3 a.m. with a panic attack and anxiety about the crushing pressure of your profession and your life, and you just think, I can't do this anymore. Like an alcoholic that hits rock bottom, you hit rock bottom on the American dream, and you think, if I keep doing this, it's going to kill me. And that's when you decide that this is going to be more than just a dream. You're going to do it. You're going to figure out a way, and it will seem impossible, and it will be something you can't just run out and do. You have to plan, work for it, like everything else you've worked for your life that has had meaning. And so you start to do it. That is when you find out that there is more to life than owning stuff. There's more to happiness than being successful. That you were right. Those things come not from having more, but having less.
The fastest race I have on video is 60 meters in 5.8 seconds.
No one can really be canceled. I think Sniper Wolf is a great example. Sniper Wolf got in a lot of trouble for doxing Jack's films, and her views are fine.
Yep, she's fine. There's no reason for her to change because she's not going to experience any long-term financial ramifications. People don't realize that there's a billion other creators you could give your time and attention to. If I'm a Sniper Wolf fan and I find out she's doing all this stuff, blocking her or unfollowing her and following other people who have objectively more talent is going to make my life better. But why? We so don't care. Once Sniper Wolf just revealed that she was just sort of a bad person, a lot of responses were like, yeah, well, she's hot though. Yeah, well, she bad. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's simply the world we live in now.
Hey, I'm not kidding when I say some of you need to be fucking imprisoned for the headlights on your cars. Are you joking? It is, how am I, it's looking into a solar eclipse. You drive a fucking Mitsubishi, are you insane? You need to be thrown, whether it's Azkaban, whether it's the Tower of London, whether it's an old-timey pirate's brig, whether it is Jupiter, I don't give a rat's ass, you are heretofore banished. You, like, St. Peter's gonna look at your name and spit.
I keep on thinking, if one attack, as barbaric as it was, and it was barbaric, if one attack pushes so many Israelis to become inhuman, there's no other word but inhuman, imagine yourself what it does to Palestinians who live under those attacks for decades. And we always wonder, how come they hate us, and how come they became those monsters, and how come they are so violent, and how come they are not human? Here is the answer.
Remember your girls. You don't care about girls? You don't care about girls. You don't care about girls. That's us. You don't care about girls. Hello, everybody. Dustin. American Airlines. Fuck the circle. Sorry. Here we go. Dustin. Here. I'm not kidding. You don't care about girls? So I want to tell you about Shelby and Dolly. Shelby and Dolly. Shelby and Dolly. We're going to do it. I'm going to do it for you. Shelby and Dolly. Shelby and Dolly. Remember. Remember this. Shelby and Dolly. Remember this. I'm just trying to get home to the world. Look, I have no paper, dog. Fuck off, bitch.